Right, it's been a couple of days since I went and saw the frame at Grant Shop. I've subsequently gone back and collected the frame because I'm not quite sure, how I want to build it up, and do I want to go build it up as a cross-country bike? Do I want to make it a trail specific bike? Those are things I want to talk through and just, I guess, run you through my thinking and the components that I'm selecting. Lots of decisions to make. How much money do I want to spend? What sort of components do I want to go for? So yeah, let's jump into it. I've got a couple of things to share with you. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so I guess one of the first sort of decisions that I've needed to make is really a decision around whether I want to set the bike up as a little bit more aggressive in a cross-country sort of setup, or whether I want a more relaxed, fun trail sort of ride. And I guess one of the beauties about this particular frame is that you have the ability to do both. So what PYGA have done with this new frame is the two cups that mount into the headset at the top and the bottom have a slight offset. So you'll see they're wider on the one side and narrower on the other side. And what that allows you to do is essentially play with the angles. You can create a more aggressive angle by turning that cup around and getting lower down on the bike and having more of a cross-country setup. Or if you just take those cups out of your frame, flip them over and reverse them, the angle sort of becomes less aggressive, and that gives you more of a trail setup. So that's the beauty about the frame. That's one of the reasons I was attracted to the frame in the first place. My current setup is that I've got two bikes. I've got the Camber, which is really my fun-loving trail bike. It's been with me around the world, and for me it's the perfect bike for riding in France or Canada, or really having fun doing some descents, but very capable on gravel roads and sort of cross-country riding as well. And then I've got the Cannondale Scalpel, which is more of a cross-country marathon setup, shorter travel on the shocks, lighter materials, and that bike is perfect for if I'm doing stage racing or rides where there's maybe a lot of gravel or some tar road involved, and you really want speed and you want stiffness in the frame, I'll go with the marathon setup. So at the moment I've got two bikes to do the job. The beauty with the PYGA frame is that through the rotation of those cups, I should be able to get away with one bike, and depending on the terrain that I'm riding, get it set up as either more or less aggressive. I made the decision to go and set the bike up as primarily a trail bike. I think it's going to give me more versatility. I want to use this bike as a fun bike. The trail setup allows me to also ride cross-country and marathon, whereas the other way around, I guess you limit yourself a little bit with the travel in the fork and maybe some of the tire choices. In terms of wheel sets, I've gone with rims made here in South Africa by South Industries. They're carbon rims. It's a 29-inch rim that I'm going with a 28mm internal. And to that, I'm going to fit the Hope Pro 4 hubs. Hope is a UK brand. They've got a very, very good name in terms of the components that they manufacture. They're a very high quality manufacturer. So the Hope hubs and those South Industries rims will make up the wheel set. From the fork perspective, I decided to go with a fork that I'm familiar with. It's the same fork that I've got on my Camber, which is the Fox 34. This time I'm going to go with 130 mils of travel, and yeah, that fork is bulletproof. I mean, it's Kashima coated. It's got a number of settings that you can make to that shock, and really make sure that you tune it in properly. From a drivetrain perspective, yeah, this was a dilemma. I guess the situation out of China and post the pandemic, the supply of parts around the world has slowed down. Trying to get access to parts and components that you really want has been tricky. So I've had a bit of a back and forth on the drivetrain. My first choice would have been to go with XO, just because I ride that on my camber. I'm very happy with XO. Durability wise, you know, it's lasted me a long time. The quality of those components is fantastic. But I haven't been able to go with XO due to availability. So it's kind of forced me into going to one level up. So I've gone with XX1 in terms of shifters and derailleur. I've also gone with AXS, which is, you know, the wireless shifting. So there's no cables. It's all kind of, you know, wireless communication between the shift on the handlebar and the derailleur at the back. Maybe overkill for a trail bike. I haven't gone for, you know, an expensive fork and sort of cheap components in other places. I've kind of pegged it as a quality build. Also XX1 cassette, and obviously the chain. We did manage to find XO cranks, so I couldn't get XX1 cranks. So the crank will be an XO with a 34 tooth chain ring in the front. In the end, it's a combination of XX1 with the XO crank. From a seat post perspective, I've opted to go with the Line dropper seat post. Line is also a South African brand, so you know it's great to be able to kind of put those components on your bike and support the local manufacturers. In terms of the cockpit, we've got a Ritchie flat aluminium handlebar up front with the Ritchie Trail stem. And then from a brake component perspective, I've opted to go with the Hope brakes. The model that I'm going to put on the bike is the E4, which is a double piston. So that should give me some really good stopping power. We're going to fit a 180mm rotor on the rear and a 203 up front. So I think the combination of, you know, bigger rotor up front and the double piston brake will provide me with as much stopping power as I probably will ever need. Again, you know, the Hope components compared to, let's say, the Shimano or the SRAM brakes, from what I've read, from what I've been told, you know, these components are highly configurable, customizable. You know, you don't have to replace the entire sort of housing. In a Hope setup, you can replace individual pieces. So if a piston goes, if you need to replace, you know, just the housing, you don't have to buy an entire new brake set, which, you know, I've been caught out in the past with the Shimano brakes. It gets costly, and I like the fact that they're serviceable, so you can replace those components as you go. So for me, it was a no-brainer to go with the Hope brakes. Tire choice, I've gone with the Maxxis Ardent 2.4 up front, a little bit more aggressive, not as aggressive as the Minion, but a little bit more bite in it than the rear wheel will have. On the rear, we've got the Crossmark 2, 2.25 diameter, so a little bit racier. But I think that combination of tire, you know, up front, you know, 2.4 width gives you a little bit more control up front where you want it, going into corners, and you know, a little bit narrower at the back. So hopefully the sort of rolling resistance you know, is improved with that configuration. In terms of pedals, I've gone with the Look X-Track. My first choice would have been the Shimano XTRs. That's what I ride on both the Cannondale and the Camber, but there's no stock. The guys at the bike shops are telling me, you know, between 4 and 6 weeks to get a Shimano XTR pedal, which is just crazy. I've never ridden these X-Tracks. I think they're okay. Look is a French brand, so something different, and I think it'll be quite cool. Right, so that's the build spec. All the parts have been ordered and are starting to arrive now. So hopefully within the next couple of days, everything will be in place and we can actually kick off the build process.